Welcome to another edition of Listening Post brought to you by the Council for Drug-Free Youth. Hi, I'm Joy Sweeney, the Executive Director of the Council for Drug-Free Youth, and today we have Ms. Judy Brooks, who is with us, and she was one of the founding parents of the Council for Drug-Free Youth, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history. So Judy, will you just elaborate about the history of the Council for Drug-Free Youth?
Well, in 1981, I had an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old, two sons, and there was a school. Now, I'm not sure if the school was who was putting it on or whether the highway patrol or exactly who put it on, but they had this major program for parents to come to one evening. And we went over to what's now the Miller Center, but it wasn't then. Anyway, we went, and here was like such a few parents there. It was just so sad, because they'd advertised it, and we needed to know what they had to say. And so out of that, there were several of us parents that thought, we need to get on board with this. And so Bob and Sally Roebuck, Peggy Quigg, who was a police officer at the time, Mary Ann Ronan, who was a mom, and Marge Borst, who was a mom, and me, who was a mom, and Ed Moses got together and started Council for Drug-Free Youth.
Wow.
So we would meet in each other's homes.
Okay.
And Ed was our fearless leader. And he was the one that really was the front line of solving drug problems, even when no one else thought there were drug problems.
Well, now, Ed at the time was a highway patrolman?
He was an undercover patrolman.
Oh, wow.
And so I think at this time, really drugs weren't as prominent, obviously, as they are now. But with him being undercover, see, he would be involved in checking out all this stuff that was going on. And so he was determined to educate the community as to what was really going on.
That there were issues, and there were issues right here in Jefferson City.
Right.
Even back then.
Even back then. It was, I think it was the beginning, the starting of drug
traffic
and for children, for kids. I mean, maybe not just for kids, actually, but it was becoming a problem.
Becoming a bigger problem then. And Ed, because he was a highway patrolman, and now he was undercover for the highway patrol.
He was an undercover agent.
Wow.
So now, he didn't look anything like he does, or did, when we saw him, because we saw some pictures of him before. So anyway, the seven of us, I guess, were the basic group. I think Bob Roebuck was the president, and I was the treasurer.
Okay.
And we would meet in each other's homes for a while, and just Ed would educate us, because we didn't know. We really did not know what was going on.
So he would educate you about the various substances, or how they were being brought in?
Just basic, anything he could think of that would help us to know what was happening,
well, I know,
and what to look out for.
Right, and so now he's a drug recognition expert, and he goes around and trains police officers how to recognize people that are using different substances. So did he kind of give you some of the inkling of that information, like if you saw your kid doing this or that or the other?
Eventually, I think he did. At first, he was just telling us about them, because none of us knew. Really, we didn't have any knowledge at all about it, and I went because I wanted my kids to not get in trouble. Right. I wanted them to be good kids, good, wholesome kids. And I wanted to know what to keep them from doing, as if I could, but anyway.
Well, you do, I mean,
did my
parents
best.
Have a tremendous influence, as we have found out through the years.
Well, and we could tell our kids, because they didn't know mine I don't think knew any yet, They were still fairly young with it, and so they didn't know until we eventually started working with the kids and trying to we'd have like a ad on the radio with, like, I remember my son Todd being in the ad, just, talking about don't do drugs and don't do alcohol or something, that kind of thing. And so we but it wasn't it was mainly our kids, I think, that we started dealing with to begin with.
Not the whole district or
it
not all
wasn't,
the
no,
kids.
not like now. at
Yeah,
all.
now we try and incorporate kids from all over our school district in Jefferson City, plus Osage County and Miller and Montauk and Camden,
Right.
all throughout Central
Right,
Missouri.
Right.
So you guys got started. Did Ed Moses? He had children at the time too,
Yes,
didn't he?
he had like 6 or so. He had a bunch.
Okay, so basically it was everybody involved was a parent
Yes,
as well.
right,
And
right.
so then how did it transition from a group of parents, and there was some law enforcement, Peggy is law
Mm-hmm.
enforcement, how did it transition from a couple law enforcement officers and parents into the next phase where we started programs in the schools?
We started, I think it's been so long ago that I have a hard time remembering exactly. But Ed was our main leader. I mean, he really was the main leader as far as educating us and knowing what to do. And in 1992, which was 11 years, I guess, after, we became a United Way agency, which we needed money in
Right.
order to do things.
Right.
And so I think that was a lot, and we got a board,
Okay.
which was like 12 or 20 people, something like that.
But
I
you
don't
had to
remember.
become a 501c3,
Yes,
and in order
yes.
to do that, you
We
had to have a
worked on
board
that,
and
and
have
right,
bylaws
right.
and get all that stuff
And
into
so
place.
through that, we realized what we needed. We had some pretty prominent people that were on our board who could go and find out or else knew what we needed to do.
Okay,
And so that's what got us into being more of a real organization rather than a group of parents.
just talking about the
talking.
problem. So that's how you became more actively engaged in solving the problem
Right.
rather than having conversations.
And we came up with, and it took a while. I wish I could remember, when all these different things happened. But we had committees, and they would, I was reading minutes today, and it was amazing, different ones reporting about different things that we needed to do and different ways of trying to get money and just, the whole, we were all working to try to get this to be a go.
Right, so that we would actually have some education in the schools that
Right.
supported drug-free.
We needed to educate, back then, the parents and the kids.
Well-
And even now.
I was going to
The
say, some
parents,
things
yeah.
just don't ever change,
Right,
do they?
right, absolutely.
So then you got a board and you got the, kind of organized structure, and then you were able to get 501c3 status and become a United Way partner agency back in 1992. Is that kind of when that happened?
That's
or-
when it almost had to be. And probably that is when we hired a director.
Okay.
I don't know that for positive.
But right about that time frame.
Yeah, because then we could afford to pay somebody, because United Way, before that, we were all complete volunteers.
Right.
And we were still volunteers for quite some time, but we did get Carol Richard as a director. And with her and her checking out stuff, I guess you'd say.
Doing the research.
Yeah, researching. We had, we started like Show Me Players and Safety Kids and some of those programs early in that time.
And so they were like the peer-to-peer program where you started engaging more youth so that they would
Be
understand.
able to, right, we were trying to hit all the different age kids.
Right, right.
So
And
that was
one of the first groups was then the safety kids.
I think it was.
I mean, that's why
think
so
it
many
was.
people in town
Know about them, yes. And would wish they were, or else they weren't, or they wanted to be, or.
I know, I remember somebody mentioning that there was a Facebook thread about how I wanted to be a safety kid and I was never, I was so disappointed that I wasn't picked.
Well, and wherever you go, when we were just at Kid Fest, when you mention to them safety kids, they know safety kids. That, they knew they remember them coming to see them,
The parents as well as the young children.
Right.
That's
right.
awesome. That's
So
really,
that is
because,
good.
well, and that's kindergarten through 5th grade we
Right.
reach with that program.
Right.
So that's kind of fun that now the parents of the kids that are in school now are
Are-
talking about
Right.
something that they remember when they were in school.
Right.
And of course, the program has changed dramatically, except for the Safety Kids song. That will never go away.
Yeah, that's got to be there.
It's a catchy tune, isn't it?
Right.
Oh, well, and then, so then we got the Safety Kids, and Show Me Players was more of a 9th grade coming into the middle schools, so that gave the children a leadership opportunity as well as an opportunity to share with their peers or their younger peers about being drug and alcohol free. And why, do you remember why any of this got started? What was there science behind it, or what was the thinking behind it, the thought process?
I don't really know for sure. Being the treasurer, I wasn't in on
You were all about the money, huh?
Get that money.
We need money to make this happen, huh?
I really don't know. It probably was somebody's idea, although is Safety Kids a program other than us? It isn't, is it? Because
no, it was created by Council for, I mean, there was a Safety Kids program on television.
We probably had some artistic,
creative
people, and they came up with Safety Kids.
Well, I know Carol probably did some research and found out that peer-to-peer education,
would be,
because that is still true today, that parents and peers are the biggest impact on young people.
Yes.
So that's probably one of the reasons that it kind of she led the group in that direction.
And the baseline, which came up probably a little bit later.
From the Kaufman Foundation. Right. And
so, I don't know, I really don't know when we started doing baseline.
Right.
But that was also, but it was added later than the Safety Kids and Show Me Players.
Those two peer-to-peer programs where you get the youth involved and engaged were the way that the organization really got
kind of started going.
A foothold. Well, okay, Judy, we're going to talk a little bit more about how we transitioned from way back then, and well, we've gone over 10, 11 years now, until where we are today, but we need to take a real short break. And so we'll be right back with Miss Judy Brooks of the Council for Drug-Free Youth.
Family Counseling Center of Missouri offers a number of therapeutic and psychiatric services at 204 Metro Drive. Our mission is to improve the quality of life for individuals, families, and communities by helping people make positive changes in their lives and empowering them to make healthy and effective choices. Our focus is building healthier lives together. Call 573-634-4591 or visit us online at info@fccmo.org. FCC is proud to be a Compass Health organization and a United Way partner agency.
Welcome back to the Listening Post, brought to you by the Council for Drug-Free Youth. And again, we have Judy Brooks here today, one of our founding parents with Council for Drug-Free Youth. And Judy, we were just talking right before the break about the Baseline program and how that had come in shortly after the two peer-to-peer Show Me Players and Safety Kids programs. What do you remember about how the Baseline program came in, or what was said about it way back then?
Well, it was for the 9th graders.
Correct, and it still is.
So, and so we were starting to get with the kids that were a little older.
Okay.
And I remember going to Baseline, and it was quite interesting. I mean, to me, actually, an adult could go to Baseline and get a lot out of it, without a doubt.
Well, there is a community Baseline training that Kaufman Foundation developed. Yeah.
And I remember the panel. Which were the people, adults and younger people, that told their story, and it really made an impression. I also would do their post-test. It wasn't called that at the time, but it would be their evaluation, and everybody liked the panel. I mean, that was the highlight of Baseline for the kids that would give us their feedback.
Yeah.
And it's an all-day long program, basically. I mean, not all day, but 9
throughout the school day.
Yeah, the school day. And it was really, really good. And I think it still is really, really good. We had a few facilitators, which we do now, too. And it was lots of different schools liked it. And we kept going to more and more.
Right, well, and that
And
is-
now we're going to more and more and more.
Exactly. We've reached down and incorporated all of the high schools in Osage County. We've got all the high schools pretty much throughout Jefferson City Public Schools and Blair Oaks Public Schools, and we're trying to reach out into Montauk and down into Camden and Miller counties so that we can really have an impact. And I know that one of the reasons that the Kauffman Foundation developed that program to combat the drug problem in the 90s, and it is an evidence-based program, and so I think that's probably why Carol researched it and brought it to the council and brought it to the schools, and I know that the schools are partners with us still to this day, and probably that's where that partnership began.
Right.
Back, do you recall any time? I mean, well, they probably began their partnership with the Safety Kids and the Show Me Players.
Yeah, probably that would have been the beginning, and then we just would keep adding on. And Team Challenge, I'm not sure when that came in, but it came along too. Which,
And that's the 8th grade program that we do. So basically, Safety Kids goes from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, and then now the 6th graders get a program that's a peer-to-peer program, but we've changed that one a little bit, and that's probably our newest program. It's called Uplift, and they are more facilitators. They do their skits and they perform for the 6th graders, but they also facilitate the groups, the small groups of 6th graders, and I really feel like the Uplifters, as 9th graders, they're 9th grade students who perform and do those programs for the 6th graders. I think it gives them an opportunity to really feel empowered. And so often in 9th grade, I mean, you have a 9th grade grandson, don't you?
he'll be 10th next
year. Right. But so often they, being the low man on the totem pole, they don't always get the recognition or the opportunities for leadership.
Actually, he'll be 11th.
Oh, so yikes. Anyway, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
We did have a program, Puppets, too.
Oh, right, and
Puppets, and that one kind of folded. I think the girl that led it was leaving, and we used puppets from her church or something, and so it kind of wasn't. But that was another one that I think was real. The younger kids really.
Right. Well, and I think that now we feel like the Safety Kids are reaching so many of the younger kids and giving them that song and dance, and really, I mean, we're getting feedback from adults who remember the Safety Kids in elementary school and how they've made a decision in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade to stay drug and alcohol free through the rest of their life, basically because of that program. So that's really an indicator to me of how powerful it is. And then we brought in a new Show Me Players program, which is, again, the 7th graders are the kids that perform that group, but they go down and talk to the 4th and 5th graders about some of the challenges that they're going to see in middle school. And I know that many children are introduced to drugs.
Right in that, that's
in
what
the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Now, don't you have a grandson that's in middle school right now?
I do. He will be in 8th grade next year.
Yeah, so he was just one of the Show Me Players last year, wasn't
well, no, he hadn't been Show Me Players yet.
Okay.
But he was, he was. What am I saying? He was a Show Me Player. He was a Safety Kid, Show Me Player, and then it would be Uplift.
Next,
he was a Show Me Player.
Last year he was a Show Me Player, so that's why I was going to let you, you went to see that program a couple times.
That was great. I mean, and the kids, I was impressed with how they pay attention to them, and when they're in a peer group like that, I think it's wonderful for the players, too. I mean, it gives them more ammunition, and just, it's good. I think
so yeah, I mean, good. So any other things that your grandson said about being part of the Show Me Players?
Well, he just knows he better not get in trouble. Grandma will get him. But I mean, he enjoyed it very much. He enjoyed that and the Safety Kids. And he really did.
Yeah, as a middle school student, has he seen other kids with?
I asked him, and he tells me no. Now, he tells me no, where the older one tells me yes, but he won't go into details with me. He knows better, I guess.
Because he knows you'll call up those parents or report them to the police or something. No,
I wouldn't, no. But anyway, the younger one, I mean, I think there's behavioral problems that he sees, but not drug. And the kids he hangs around with. He's into sports and stuff, so the kids that he hangs around with, are so busy that doesn't mean you can't get into it. I know that, but at his age, he's tired. He wants to lay around and rest.
They're growing, right?
Right.
And so
right.
if they're active and engaged in various positive activities, they
Right.
have a tendency to stay away. And I mean, again, all the evidence leads to that as well. So he's not exposed to it as much.
No.
Yeah.
I think that is true.
And I had similar situations with my children
Yeah.
when they were in middle school here. You know, as long as they kept busy, the friends that they surrounded themselves with weren't involved.
They didn't have extra time to
right.
get in trouble, I guess.
Right.
Or investigate.
Right, or be around people
Right.
that were.
Right.
And that's another one of those aspects that I think that no matter what you're doing in high school, I think you have the exposure that you didn't have in middle school.
Right.
And that's why we try and really focus on that baseline program. And then you mentioned Team Challenge. That's in conjunction with the National Guard. Now, do you remember, was there somebody in the National Guard that brought it to Council for Drug Free Youth?
I don't know
or?
how that got started,
Okay.
truthfully. But I know that we did go to the Armory, and they would help do it. And I don't know if Team Challenge, is it a program someone else would have already?
Yeah, the National Guard did.
It is their program.
Okay.
Okay.
And
okay.
they do it with recruits and stuff like that about building, it's all about
yeah.
team building. And then we take the team building one step further and tie it in to building a strong team that helps support each other and to not doing drugs and alcohol and making good choices and also anti-bullying, anti-suicide. We tie all of that in
together.
to all of the programs now. Again, the more we've seen an increased need in the schools, the more we try and bring those things into the programs. And I know that you're in all of our coalition meetings, so you hear us talking
Right,
about all
right,
of this stuff.
right.
And then the other program that we have now too is the COPE program.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember how that got started.
See, I really don't know the details of how they got started. I just know, you know,
that it's a seventh grade program, and we do it with
And
seventh
it's-
grade students.
Right.
And it at first, I know it just targeted tobacco and alcohol, and now we've incorporated marijuana in there because more and more we're seeing that is the age of first use for that substance as well. And so we're trying to bring that education to that level of students so that they can be knowledgeable rather than having their first experience
Right.
be from somebody that's encouraging them to use it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and so, you know, and now, as you know, looking back on the way we, you know, Council for Drug Free Youth got started as a group of parents to where we are now, what are some of the differences that you see?
Well, actually, the fact that it's really more of a problem than it even was then is one of the biggest things. Is that I mean, back then it was sort of unusual, where now it's scary, very scary. And a similarity is that the parents don't know. We didn't know, I didn't know the details at all, and now we have a hard time still getting parents' attention. And I think they really need to know what's going on for their own sake and their kids' sake.
Well, I know, I mean, when I've talked to new groups about different things or gone out to civic organizations in the community, many of them are totally oblivious to some of the vaping and the
Right.
hookahs and some of those aspects. Most of them are completely unaware of all the different ways that marijuana is
Right,
being ingested.
right.
I mean, you know, the dabbing and the oils and the edibles and all of those different things, and the THC levels. I mean, back in the 60s, you know, Woodstock days, THC was maybe 3% of the marijuana, and now it's 15, 30, and in some of the oils and some of the dabbing things, it's up to 90%. And that's a hallucinogen. That's like taking LSD back in the day. It's not the same thing as smoking pot and getting a little bit high. It's, you're seeing images, you're becoming psychotic. the changes in your brain. I love talking to Ed Moses today.
Yes, yes.
Because he's so knowledgeable
Right.
about how.
Well, and it scares you as to what is our society going to be, because those differences in their brain can never be corrected. And that is, when I learned about all of that, I thought, oh my goodness, you know.
The brain science behind it all.
Right, right.
I mean, attending some of those educational forums and the town halls that we do now. We have one coming up on June 21st too, so Ed will be there to talk about that, as well as Chuck from ACT Missouri and several different people, subject matter experts on various chemicals and how they interfere with your brain's ability to function.
Right, right.
And I mean, my biggest frustration right now is how opioids, you know, every other commercial on television is about this drug or the other, and you know, it'll cure toenail fungus, but it could kill you, you know, and then how we are normalizing marijuana on all of our television shows and everything that we do. It has become like drugs are just so benign in our society that nobody is really thinking of the consequences to our children.
Right, right.
And then our kids think, you know, they help heal people or they cure people, when in fact they also kill people. And now the heroin opioid epidemic that our society is facing is getting people to at least wake up and smell the coffee. You know, I don't know. You know, you had to struggle with getting people's attention back in back in the original days of Council for Drug-Free Youth. What do you think we should do now to really shout from the rooftops and get people's attention?
I wish I had a real answer. We just have got to keep trying and keep trying to educate the adults too.
Right. Educate the community.
The community, right? The community.
Because it's not just the parents. I mean, the parents need to know.
The whole community, right? Because I think if you aren't involved with it or haven't had any experience with it, you have no idea.
No.
And it can affect your family big time. I mean, it may not involve them, right, the immediate family, but someone they love.
It destroys families.
Yes.
And we've seen the consequences heavily.
Right.
So thanks again, Judy, for being with us today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Listening Post, brought to you by the Council for Drug-Free Youth.